Good evening, everybody. This is Christopher Colagiani, and as I said, I just put it out on Twitter. I am live right now, so please feel free to jump in. You can send a message on Twitter. I've got you guys up on the screen here. A couple different things that I wanted to discuss this week. So hopefully everybody's able to hear me okay. Last time, so just for those that are curious, the first episode I kind of gave you guys just a little bit of background and some ideas on what exactly I'm planning to do. I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to just say I apologize because I know that the sound quality on that was not very good. That was actually just using my headphones speaker or my headphones microphone just sitting in my car trying to get something out there for you guys. So I do apologize for that, but taking this opportunity to expand a little bit. So right now I'm at home. I've got my full setup, so hopefully you guys can hear me a bit better, and then hopefully we can have some good discussion. I'm really looking forward to hopefully some people joining in and being able to chat. So the first thing I want to start off with, this is the Life and All That podcast, and I want to start off talking about one thing that's really near and dear to me, which is technology. So specifically, I'm going to talk about a couple pieces that, for those out there that are like me, that are in academia, I think they're really good. On the flip side, for those that are not, I'm going to be quite honest, I think the tech that I'm going to share is stuff that just about anybody can use. So stick with me here. So the first one I want to talk about, if you have a lab, if you're in academia, you're doing research, you're in a lab, I want to share one that, I'll be clear up front. Full transparency, I'm not getting anything for this, but all the tech that I want to talk about is just stuff that I like technology, I like to test it out, I like to try it out, play with it, and then, I like to kind of share that with whoever. So the first one is a program for those that may not be familiar. There's a concept called the Electronic Lab Notebook, or ELN. There's a lot of different options out there, and the one that I've found that I think has a lot of features, a lot of functionality, you can actually design your experiments in it, you can track your experiments in it, you can put your data directly into it, you can actually take your samples, you load them in there, you can reuse them other times, you can share with other people if you're collaborating, so there's a lot of functionality there. So for those that might not have ever seen one or heard of it, there's one called SciNote, SciNote, and it is it's free. It is open source. There are, of course, some options where, that's how it goes today. You can go on, you can test it out, you can play with it, you can try to put some stuff in there, see what you think. The training's fairly easy, and I got to tell you, it definitely makes life easy as far as being able to collect everything in one place, especially if you have a larger lab, or you want to put all your protocols in one place, and you can actually pull your protocols live into your experiments. To me, that's just amazing. It gives one place, you don't have to go searching for it. Another option that I think is important from a technological perspective is, I want to talk about a couple other apps before I talk about any kind of hardware. I think for those that might we actually just used this today in our lab meeting. If you're doing long distance meetings, there's a conference system called Zoom, Zoom, and through that you can actually you can get video, you can get sound, you can get direct calls. So yeah, there's a number of different possibilities there. I also like it because there's an app that goes with it on the phone, so instead of having to necessarily do it, you don't really have to do it through the computer, which I think for most of us, we have our phone with us all the time, so it makes life a lot easier. Another thing that I wanted to share as far as apps go, there's for those that want to try and put together some maybe a better meeting, There's a system called Minute that you can use, which will help you to organize your meetings. Again, very, very easy. Also has a mobile app. Essentially, it's just a digital meeting management program. I would like to say that it's idiot-proof, quite frankly. It's not a complex system. It's really made just to give you some basics. You fill it in. You can update live. You can send out a summary afterwards. You can collect your information in there. So a lot of features that I think help, or should help, hopefully, to stop from having, necessarily just to do the basic Word document or the basic Google Doc. So that's one more thing that I think that it's a good option. Hardware-wise, a couple things that I think are kind of cool. For those that have never tried it, and I know there's a lot out there that haven't, and I'm going to just be very frank, I love computers, I love technology, and I have, just like many other people, have used Windows for many years. I have not been into Mac, so I will just upfront say that, and there's a lot of people who get a little annoyed with me about that. I do know that it has a lot of value, especially when it comes to video, pictures, those types of things. However, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people are aware of is Chromebooks. So Chromebook is a concept that was originally, I think most people probably have heard the term netbook. That was for a long time the most common name, I suppose. But really, I'm here to tell you they do a lot more. You can do about 90 to 95% of everything that you want to do on a Chromebook, and you can get them for a heck of a lot cheaper than what you get your Windows computer and things like that. Some of the benefits of using a Chromebook, if you have a Google account, you get to use your Google Drive, Docs, Sheets. All of these things function just like for most other Office programs. And you can actually, if you need to convert into Windows or out of Windows format, you can do that, which I think even for those that are using Mac, you're probably using Windows Office, Microsoft Office as well. So you're not really losing anything. I will say if you're going to do a lot of heavy-duty audio and video and those types of things, you probably want to stick with something like a Windows or, of course, a Mac if that's what you're into. There are a lot of web-based programs. I use Canva. That's one cloud-based system you can use for design. I've used things like this. There's actually a couple of them that I think are really powerful for my last poster that I just did for the Delaware annual Delaware Neuroscience Symposium back in December. I actually designed my entire poster in a cloud system and then printed it and everything was fine. So I think it's really about whether or not you're comfortable with it, but I do think that it's a good idea, at least in my opinion, to go out and check some of these things out. If you are looking for easy ways, if anybody has questions, you can email me. You can email ChristopherMJanney@gmail.com. That's my direct email, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions if you have specific questions. And I just think that's how we can all learn and make life a little bit easier. If you want a way that you can go look stuff up on your own, there's another place online. You can go to labworm.com. That's another kind of cool tool that has it's a crowd kind of social. Sort of a social website that's focused on helping to put together an aggregated community version of tools. It's not, you'll find some tools that you'll look at that I'm sure that you probably use today. You'll find that you look at it and you go, man, this is an amazing tool, and it might have 1 vote or it might have 3 votes. That's okay. Vote it up. Go share it with people. That's how people find out about it. As for personally, like I said, some of the ones that I've talked about already, they're on there. There's a lot of others, and I'll be adding more. Each time we talk here, I'll try to do this every so often because I have lots of tech that I think is just really awesome and makes life a lot easier. So, yeah, that's the tech that moves. So right now, that's some of the stuff that's been floating around for me that I wanted to share with you guys. And like I said, if there's other stuff that you're interested in, you're curious about, do not hesitate to let me know. And if you have some suggestions on stuff that you're like, man, you really got to try this, you got to check this out, please share with me, because I love to go try out new stuff and play around with it and see exactly how it works. So that being said, I'm going to jump into some other topics this week. And of course, anything that I'm talking about, if you guys are interested, if you're like, oh, I got a comment on this, or that's fine, please do not hesitate. Send me a message, drop me a note on Twitter, or if you want to just make sure you put the @ there, so at least I get the direct message. It'll be a lot easier. And then if you want to chat, you can actually go through the link. You should be able to through Spreaker. You should be able to jump right into the chat there. So I want to start off with a topic that I think is super important, especially this week. It's made me think about it. We got finals coming up, and so whether it's me or whether it's other people, I'm sure that I'm not the only one. There's a lot of stuff happening right now, and it's been really busy. I've got a project that I'm starting, a major experiment, and it involves a lot of my time. I've had a little bit of downtime here recently, and that's been nice to spend time. For those that don't know, I'm married. I have 3 kids. My kids are my oldest is getting ready to turn 9. My middle one just turned 6, and then my youngest is getting ready to turn 3. And so it's busy. I mean, look, that's life. That's the way it works. And for anybody that's also part of the wild and crazy world that is grad school and academia, even better. It is just absolutely a time suck every single day going to the lab. And I think, something that is super important, is your family. And I think that it's not worth, I don't think it's said enough. I feel like in some cases, I've had situations, personally, I feel like I've heard people say, not just in academia, but just, even previously. I mean, I worked almost 15 years in the corporate world, and, I feel like I hear people say things like, yeah, family is the most important here, but it really is. It really genuinely is. And in grad school, it's even more so. So for those that have either are experiencing this or are thinking about this, it's really hard as a grad student, especially if you have kids and you're married and you're trying to do this thing where you're spending all your time in the lab and you're spending all this time with your cohort and the professors, and it's easy to kind of to find yourself separated from everything that's going on at home, and I understand that, but I think it's also really critical for everybody to be aware of that. And I think for the PIs that are out there that hear this, please, postdocs and PIs and department heads and program directors and all of you, just know that you need to make that important, right? So I think the challenge is that we hear people say, well, this is the way it should be, right? You should focus on your family. But then when you do that, there's kind of backlash. I've seen this even within our own lab. There are challenges when people have kids and they have to bring them to work, or they have to go take them to an appointment, or to and there is a tendency to think, what, there's a spouse, and so that spouse or that significant other should even if you're not married, right? For those out there that are in a committed relationship, and maybe you have your significant other that's there, right? Like, that's something that person still has things that are going on, and it's not sufficient for a PI to just say that it's important. You need to make it important for the lab and for the people in your lab, and really you're the leader in this, right? And that's ultimately where I think the PI can come in, is to say, let me teach you how to do this the right way. And yeah, it may mean that you have to take a little time to really help shape your grad students and your postdocs, right? But and postdocs, to help shape your grad students too. And even at the undergrad level, trying to help people learn that, like, come in, work hard, do good things, have fun, but take some downtime, make sure you take some time away from all this. So, you guys have a responsibility to that. And then for family, for the husbands and wives out there, thank you for what you do for those of us that are in grad school and those of us that are working in a lab. I mean, you genuinely don't even begin to understand, I think, how important that is. So, as hard as it might be sometimes, thank you. I am very thankful for my wife. I know that, honestly, I just couldn't, I just quite frankly couldn't do it without her. My wife has put up with a lot of moving around to try to get things done, and my time being divided, and me not being able to attend certain things. And for those that may not know, I went back to school and went to undergrad much later than most, and I worked full time and I went to school full time, and then I moved right into grad school, and that's not easy. And I admit that, I admit that that's a difficult task for anybody. So, for those that are doing it, be thankful for those that are supporting you. Don't just be thankful inside. Let them know. Tell them that you care and how much you appreciate it, because honestly, you need to let them know they need to hear it. So, I know I probably don't tell my wife nearly enough, but, hopefully she'll hear this and she hear me say, just thank you. I know how hard you worked to finish up your doctorate and, finish your dissertation, and I love you and I'm proud of you. And, so good work with all that. And thank you for all that you do for me and for our family. And then, the other thing is that, I will also say that my wife and I have thankfully had a lot of really, really good conversations about what it does take and what I need and what she needs and those types of things. And I think that's also very important. So, it's especially for I'm as a Muslim, that's something that's really important. Islam teaches us that, you should really look at your spouse as the other half of your faith. And, I really see that with my wife, and we have challenges just like anybody, but, I'm very grateful for her. And I've taken the time, and she's taken the time, and we've sat down and said, look, we need to have some very real discussions about what this means for us and how we're going to support each other in this. And that discussion by itself is not always easy. So, I encourage anybody that's going through that, take the time, sit down, have the discussion. If you're struggling, tell your partner that you're struggling. It's important. That lets them know you're thinking about them, and that that they're having to deal with it. It's no different than in the military or for police spouses or whatever. You get these people who are going through challenging situations. You have to share. You have to talk. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about kind of leads from that, right? So I said, for the PIs that are, for those that are, you're leading your lab, you're running your lab. I think one of the things that I've seen, and again, this is coming from somebody who's spent, the better part of the last, almost 15 years working in corporate, looking at performance and looking at organizations and this type of thing. You guys got to take the time to learn what it means to lead and to run something. It's not sufficient to just go from being an undergrad to a grad student to a postdoc, and then all of a sudden, bam, you have a lab and you're jumping in. And I would have to believe, okay, as many people as I've taught in the business world and across organizations, it's got to be a little overwhelming. It has to be. There have to be some of you out there that are looking at your time moving into a PI position and saying, my goodness, what am I getting myself into? I'm way over my head. And you know what? I can totally understand that. I think it is a lot. It's overwhelming, but it's good. You just need to take the time to try to take a step back and think about it from the perspective of the people that you are in charge of now. And sometimes it may be really difficult to realize, but I'm going to let you in on a dirty little secret. You are now the boss. And I know, I can't even begin to tell you how many people that I've talked to that seem to, they kind of say, well, I don't like that word. Or, and I hear you, I do. But quite frankly, that's fact. Okay, you can run away from it all you want to, but that's fact. So you're going to have to step in. And I think that I see the same thing with doctors, and I see the same thing with attorneys. And I see that you have people that go through all this rigorous training to do something, right? And they come out, and then people say, okay, now go run this thing for what you do. That's just not sufficient. It's not. I wish it was, but it's not. So, my best advice out to PIs out there, and I'd love to hear from other people who are maybe going through the same thing. What are your thoughts, and what are you feeling about this? I mean, again, I'd like to keep this as a discussion more so than just me sitting here blabbering on. I think that PIs need to take a step back and think, what would it be like if I had to work under me right now? What would I think of me? How would I like this? And then think about all the things that you absolutely hated about where you worked, coming up through grad school and postdoc. What were the things that you said you would never do? What were the things you said you would always do? I mean, you have to have them. I mean, honestly, everybody has to have them. The key, in my opinion, is making sure that you follow through with some of that stuff, because if you didn't like it, there's a pretty good chance that other people don't like it. If you do happen to find yourself stuck in something where you're sitting there thinking, my goodness, what am I doing? Then just stop. Stop for a minute and try to do something else. Ask somebody. Try to ask somebody in your lab, hey, how am I doing on this? I mean, you might be surprised. Some people could be super honest with you. If they're too scared to tell you, then that might be a pretty good indication that maybe that's not how you want to run things. But yeah, I think that it's really valuable to, in the long run, to really focus on how you're running it. And there's some things that you're going to have to do that you might not like to do. Things like organization, things like coming up with, standard operating procedures, and then communicating it. Right? So having those discussions with people, the boring administrative things, things like, hey, by the way, we're not going to put certain things in certain shelves of the fridge, right? Don't put certain things in the minus 20 on this side of the room, put them in the minus 20 on the other side of the room. Whatever the case is, honestly, you gotta have some of that. That reduces the anxiety for everybody. You're not worried about what people are, doing, where things are going, and they're not either. I mean, and especially for those that are coming in, new, whether it's an undergrad, whether it's a grad student, whether it's a postdoc. I mean, it just seems like this is an ongoing thing. I have yet to find anybody that tells me they had an amazing experience with all this. So if it's an established lab, it's been there for a long time, maybe they've eventually come around to it and it's been much smoother, much easier, but I think that that's the exception, not the rule. So I would just strongly encourage, take some time, figure out some organizational things, as hard as it might be to step away from what you might consider to be the freedom and openness, that's, it is just a necessity. It really is. And don't assume, that's one of the hard things. I came into my lab and I've never had to work in a lab before, especially not a wet lab. And so I came in from a very different background, which gives me a little bit of a different perspective, which is great in some ways. On the other hand, it's also a challenge, right? Because people automatically want to, assume you're coming into a situation, you should have a certain level of knowledge. It's a good idea. Check, ask some questions, and take a real temperature check of that person and that person's situation, and then tailor things a little bit to them to help them, right? Because that's that to me, that's one of those things where if you don't do that, you can't be upset if things are not done the way that you want them done, or that they're not done as quickly. So if you have specific ways you want it done, if you need it done a certain way, just make sure that you have that so that people aren't guessing. Nobody likes that. So that's another big piece. Last thing I wanted to say, and I'll probably always have a little piece of this. So from a Muslim perspective, I want to just throw out something here. So I want to just clarify this up front, outright, no questions whatsoever. So there is nothing in Islam whatsoever that tells me or any other Muslim to not care about your other, any other holidays, any other religions. There's nothing that says that. Okay, so for anybody that's thinking one way or the other on that, I just want to clarify. So I would like to just take this opportunity to say a very belated but very happy Easter to all of those out there, all of those that might have celebrated. If you just took the time off and you're not celebrating from a religious perspective, I hope you enjoyed the time off. And I also want to say that I hope that in the future, I'm always open to questions. One of my favorite things to talk about is definitely religion. I know it's a taboo topic for a lot of people, but I think it's important. It's a part of who I am, and to me, my scientific career and my exploration and my seeking knowledge is actually part of my faith. And so, as an Ahmadi Muslim, we believe that science is just, it really is just revelation. And I don't think there is any question that we have those aha eureka moments, right? Like that's what everybody's looking for, is that moment when everything makes sense. And so no matter what you want to call it, that's your own choice of how. I'm not here to try and tell you, oh, you're horrible, and all. I don't do that. I like to have open dialogue, but I'm also going to be very honest and very true to who I am and what I believe and those types of things. So hopefully that doesn't offend. If it does, I'm sorry, and feel free to not listen if it's just too much. But I just wanted to say that, put that out there. So very happy belated Easter to all of our Christian friends and everybody that celebrated. Hopefully you had lots of chocolate and some good sermons that happened. I know Sunday sermons during Easter tend to be a little bit, could be a little heavy, could be kind of fun. I grew up around Southern Baptists and Catholics, and so it was quite a mix, and I got both sides of it. So so that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's the main topics that I had for this week. I don't see anybody, no notifications or anything, so I'm not sure if it actually went out. If it didn't, I'm just going to apologize in advance. I'm still trying to work out all this. I'm trying to, so the link is actually up on my Twitter, so hopefully there's some people who are able to get on and listen. But yeah, so the last thing I'll kind of wrap up with, and unless I see anybody jump in and want to join in the discussion here, so last thing I'll kind of throw out there, I have a couple of really cool upcoming interviews. I just wanted to kind of just throw it out to everyone and let you guys know. So I have 2 that I've got planned right now. I'm trying to work out timing. I apologize. It's been a little crazy as it gets towards the end of the semester. So I have one that I'm going to talk to a postdoc who has taken probably the more traditional route. So she, went through, her name is Dr. Stephanie Davis, and she took the undergrad to PhD program to postdoc, and then so now she's our postdoc. But in the process of all this, she's had now on her getting ready to have her third child, and happily married and going through. But I wanted to talk to I said in the very beginning in episode 1, you hear me talk about I grew up around really strong women and women who had to deal with all these all these challenges. So I know that there are still women right now, and I think that the important thing is that we need to talk about it. We need to make it something that's normalized for people to hear. Look, it's not just one person that's dealing with it. It's a lot. And a lot of people that are having to they feel like they're alone in this, and they're not getting the support that they need, and they're not getting the care that they need from within the labs and within the organizations. And I know that's not the case from everywhere. So before I get a bunch of hate mail and people really upset with me, let me clarify, I do know that that's not everywhere. But what I'm saying is that there are still a lot of places where men and women do not necessarily feel supported trying to continue to have a family and to grow and develop. So my point on that is I want to have a talk with her and have a chance for her to say some things on it, because honestly, I think it's just such an important topic. And so I'm looking forward to that. It should be really good. The other thing that I'm trying to get worked out is there's another person from my cohort, and I'm trying to work that out to have. She actually is from Jamaica. Her name is Ashley Anderson. I'm hoping to have her come on, and we'll either record an interview or try to do a live one if possible, and have her talk with you guys about. I want to have a discussion about what is it like, especially as a female coming from outside the country and coming in. She went up through high school in Jamaica, and then came to the United States and went through undergrad and now grad school. So as you can imagine, it's a different experience. So, you have a female, and it's a female who's a person of color coming from a different country, and then seeing how things are here. So I think that's an interesting discussion as well, because I think it's a different experience than obviously what I can have necessarily. But I really think it's a good discussion. If anybody that's listening, if you have suggestions on people or topics or any of this kind of stuff, please email me, Twitter message me, find me on LinkedIn, find me on ResearchGate. I don't care where you find me, come talk to me, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know, hey, don't do this, stop doing that thing, don't do this piece anymore, add more of this. Whatever. I love feedback, and I will do my best to adjust and improve, and hopefully this will get better each time, and hopefully, God willing, we'll get a little bit better on me getting the plan out to you guys, and then also hopefully getting the episodes when I launch, have that in advance. They will be a little random just because of my own schedule, so it's kind of like a surprise. You get a little bit of a chat, but some weeks might be more, some might be less. So hopefully everybody has enjoyed, and this is the end of this particular episode. I don't know about the week. I was going to say it's the end of the week, or the end of the episode for the week, but I might have another one this week. I'm trying to see. So we'll see what happens. Let me see what I can work out. I might be able to get those in, one or both of those other interviews in this week. We'll see what we can do. So thanks so much, everybody. This is Life and All That, and I will talk to you guys next time.